So I think this evening what I'd like to lead us through is an inquiry in how we use the gifts that we have in this world that is very lavish for us and filled with wonder, but is quite a horrific place for too many people on the planet right now. So I want to lead you through, starting first with this question of what time is it for the world? Okay. This might be a little depressing. I think that's a good thing, actually. What I'm really trying to do here is, if we can look reality directly in the face, then we have the potential to know how to serve. And that's the purpose of anything I'm going to say, is where can we each make a contribution to this world at this time? So for those of you who are working in organizations of any kind, and it doesn't matter which country you're in, this is definitely the era of doing more with less. I would just believe that we are not going to see money again for many years, that sort of easy affluence or thinking we had the money we need. We certainly have other resources that I'm hoping we will start to use, such as good relationships, such as community. But in most organizations now, people are feeling more and more squeezed, like this poor fish, to really do more and more with fewer and fewer resources. And one of those resources is disappearing, is time, right? So this is also an era, and again, I'm sad to report, having just spent quite a lot of time in Australia, which was also used to be like the laid-back capital country, in my estimation, where people remembered that you worked so that you could have a life. Do you even remember that time, here? But even there, the anxiety and stress of this time is leading to more conflict. Canada, which used to be so mellow, I'm from the U.S., we're the leaders in this, by the way. Olympic gold medal athletes in terms of polarization. In fact, the most common word used now is fracturing, not even polarized. We're just broken in many ways. But even in Canada, if you look at your last national election, that was pretty nasty for Canada, And I know many of you are worried about that trend. It's not seen as an anomaly that there were, it was more vindictive and mean-spirited and slanderous, but it's also seen as the way things are going. And that is a general trend worldwide. And it's, of course, a time of fear and anxiety. Palpable in many places now. Just think about in your day-to-day work environments how easily you or other people get angry or upset, or how quickly you get frustrated. We're going to talk more specifically about these things in a little while, but this is just a general rise in anxiety and fear. And I don't think I need to say anything about this. It's clearly if we could just stop for a few moments and instead of trying to pin the blame on someone, if we could just sit down and start thinking together again. But instead of thinking together, we're just very quickly trying to get the target off ourselves, or we're denying that the problem is as serious as it is. I find that this denial of what's really going on to be far more de-energizing than knowing what's going on. I also recently heard a new maxim, which is, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how quickly you can place the blame on someone. That's the current politics. So it's led to the revival of this poster, which is from a while ago. And then recently, one of my sons, who's 27, sent me this. But then there's also the opportunity that any time of chaos offers us. And St. Augustine from the 4th century said, you know, this catastrophe, I don't know which one he was referring to in the 4th century, but he said this catastrophe is not the end, but the beginning. History does not end so. It is the way its chapters open. And I don't want to make light of the direness of this time and the messes we're in, and the fact that we have so many complex problems that we're just not willing to approach with good thinking and good companions. I don't want to make light of that at all. But the other side of it is there are a few of us, and all it takes is a few, as Margaret Mead said many years ago, you know. Never underestimate the power of a small group of dedicated people to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever does. So I'm very focused that we don't need critical masses of people using this time as opportunity. We need critical connections among a few of us. And that's part of my motivation for this evening, is just to see if you resonate with this sense that this is a time of opportunity, but it's not that we're blindly going in saying, oh, this is great. This is a terrible time for most people on the planet, and I want to hold that in our awareness. But there are people now who are writing about, speaking about this sea change which is happening, and this is a good thing. So can you all read that from the back? Yeah. What I love about this is that, you know, she says that this is a deepness within our culture to find a more centered life, a slower life. How many of you have thought about that? How many of you have raised the question about, or made a statement to friends or partners that my life is out of balance? You know, I have to find balance in my life. I never did find balance in my life. But I did find meaning and purpose, and that, I think that's okay. So another columnist, Gaylord Ferguson, who's a Buddhist teacher, said that this is how we're going to progress, you know. It's through developing strong, healthy communities. This is a big part of my work out now because I have learned in the poorest of places, most economically poor places, I want to distinguish that their poverty is material. Because what I've learned there is that they have community, and if you have community as human beings, we can get through anything. So this is a very hopeful trend as well. And then from an economist at Harvard, she's written a book called Plenitude, which is a very nice old-fashioned sounding word, and that we're rediscovering the richness and the wealth that's available. This is the work of my own institute, Berkana Institute, where we say that we're working with people who have already discovered that the wealth that they need is in themselves, in their human creativity. It's in their traditions, whatever that culture is. That's also a source of great wealth and grounding for people these days. And it's in their environment, how we work with the natural resources and the power of place. So I find these very important things to focus on in the context of a world which is in deep distress. So in answer to this question, what time is it, I want to bring in now one of my favorite writers, Thomas Merton. Do you know his work? I mean, he was one of our great, great philosophers, activists, Catholic mystic, hermit, etc. And I take this quite seriously. Humans have a responsibility to their own time. Not as if they could seem to stand outside it and donate various spiritual and material benefits to it from a position of compassionate distance. That's called spiritual sarcasm, by the way. Right? Humans have a responsibility to find themselves where they are in their own proper time and place in the history to which they belong and to which they must inevitably contribute. Either, these are our choices, our response or our evasions, either truth and act or mere slogan and gesture. This defines the choices we make. And in everything that I'm saying tonight, the common denominator here is that we have to be conscious, we have to be aware of what's going on, and then we have to consciously choose who we want to be for this time. So this is currently my favorite quote because I find it very provocative. It's from Chogyam Trungpa, who's the founder of Shambhala Buddhism. And I just love this. We cannot change the way the world is, but here's the path he lays out, but by opening ourselves to the world as it is. So encountering reality, not turning our heads from what's going on, being big-hearted enough to take in all this pain and suffering that's around us. It's by opening ourselves to the world, truthfully letting it in, that we find that gentleness, decency, and bravery are available, and not just for ourselves, but perhaps for other human beings as well. I have not read anything like this anywhere else. And what I find unique about this and so important is that if we want to be brave and we want to be decent people and we want to be gentle, not enraged, we want to be gentle in our actions. That's a synonym for compassion and open-heartedness. If we want these qualities, the path to finding them is to let the world in. And yet the world is so frightening and so bombarding us with things that it's often difficult to realize that if we can open our hearts, then we can discover the very qualities we need to serve the world.